This episode of the Conversation Podcast is brought to you by uniweb.com, your one-stop solution for cutting-edge software development and AI-driven technology. If you're looking to take your business to the next level with innovative digital solutions, Uniweb has got you covered. All right, my G, Mr. Tehran, how are you, man?
What's going on, my brother? How are you?
Oh, man, dude, I haven't seen you. I mean, I've seen you on social media, but I haven't seen you. God, it's last time we talked was probably 10 years ago.
Sheesh, time flies when you're having fun. Time flies when you're having fun.
Time flies, time flies. I'm really glad that you accepted my invitation to come on this podcast, bro.
I appreciate you for even having this podcast. It's things like these, our stories need to be told. That immigrant story, that backbone story, the story that's the spirit, especially now more than ever.
Yes, sir. I'm with you. I would love for the audience to very diverse audience, by the way, all over the place, which is great. Just kind of give a little bit of background of your who you are and what you've done, obviously, and then I'll just jump in and we'll go organic and see where we land.
Of course, let's
Go
go.
go for it, bro.
So, for everyone who doesn't know me, my name is Tehran. I am a comedian based mostly out of the Laugh Factory, but I tour all over the world. I am half Black, half Iranian, and have a multitude of religious backgrounds in my family as well, which adds to a lot of inclusivity that goes into my comedy and also just into my life story in general. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., but now, like most people, I'm a Los Angeles transplant, but pretend like I'm a native. And that's where we are today.
Very, very poignant, to the point introduction. Mr. Tehran, listen, man. I remember when we spoke last, I think you came from DC, right? That was your place.
DC is where I was born and raised in DC, in the suburbs right outside of DC, which is known as the DMV, District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. It's like a 30-minute wide radius area where everybody lives and flourishes educationally, academically, financially. It's a really good place to be from.
It's funny. You're so unique in your own way, bro. I don't know anyone else, which is a fantastic thing for you. I don't know anyone else that has your background and your I guess the way you come across, and especially now that you're doing comedy. Some of the shit is pretty fucking funny.
I
You
know.
know,
You would think, like, right now in the world, how many Black and Persian comedians do you think there are in the world?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
You.
there are three. There are three Black and Persian comedians in the world right now. There's my man Norman in Germany, another dude who's my boy named Joe in Australia. It's very interesting. But the thing that I tell everyone is when it comes, because it feels like everybody's all of a sudden Black and Persian. When I was growing up, it was very unique. But now everyone's Black and Persian. Yara Shahidi, who is a world-class actress and just an amazing humanitarian, Black and Persian. TJ Houshmandzadeh, who is an NFL All-Pro, Black and Persian. Like, go down the list. All I say is this: I was the first. It doesn't matter if I'm the oldest. I invented it. Nobody was Black and Persian
Yeah.
before me. And
Uh,
when you talk about being unique, like, people love to talk about my background being unique. My name, the one thing you don't know is another person named Tehran and in the whole world. And even if they are, I promise you they're not Persian at all.
yeah. I love it. So when you were growing up as a kid, you grew up most of your life in DC, right?
Exactly. I grew up in DC, Southeast DC, right in Potomac Gardens, and then outside in Fairfax County, Virginia.
How was it for you? I mean, you grew up in a time where you kind of had to make your own way. So how was it for you being a multiracial kid growing up?
Well, when I was growing up, multiracial being and entities were very new. Like, we forget that it was illegal to be mixed in America until the 70s. You couldn't be a Black person, marry a white person, and vice versa, all the way down, right? So being mixed is a pretty new thing, so much so that being light skinned was a subject in books and in movies, just for a person to be a light skinned Black person, who is very interesting that we always say things like President Obama is the first Black president, when technically speaking, he's just as white as he is Black. His mother is white. His mother is a Caucasian female. So it's always interesting to me how we always go towards one way and not the other. But being mixed was so new that people didn't even know how to handle it. They didn't know how to interact. They didn't know how to talk about it. People were still very homogenous, but now, of course, we see it's become the wave of the world. We're all mixed in some way.
Did you have a tough time with some like racism and stuff like that? Just trying to kids bullying you or trying to push you around because they didn't know what you were, trying to make fun of you?
I think growing up in the United States, every kid in America is always going to have a tough time of racism. And that means whether you're black, white, purple, or green, there's somebody who's going to say something to you. Hey, white boy, hey, N word, whatever it is, that'll get you there. It's the effects of what it is and what it does to you afterwards that makes the difference. For me, I would say that, of course, I've been subject to racism, placism, and other types of isms. But what I haven't ever done is let it define me or put me down. I've always seen myself as the hero of my own story. And I hope everyone else does too. And
It's
don't
amazing.
allow the world to ever allow itself to victimize you. Use it as motivation, use it as inspiration, use it to stand up and protest, use it to speak up and speak out. Whatever you do, use it and don't let it use you.
That's, I gotta tell you, man, it's quite fascinating, the stand that you've taken and how you become like this stand-up comedian. When did you decide you wanted to be a comedian?
Well, I actually decided to be a comedian very late. Like I was finishing my last year of law school when I decided that
Oh,
I wanted to
wow.
be a comedian. It wasn't plan A, B, or C. What it really came out of is I started thinking of how I could, as myself, reach the world or reach out to the world and tell my story. And I felt like the best way to do so is to be a comedian. That's the modern day philosopher. That's the person who teaches us most in the world we know about today. Who's more of a philosopher today than Dave Chappelle or Chris Rock? Who's taught us more about race relations? Who's taught us more about sexism and gender roles than Tiffany Haddish or Wanda Sykes? Who's taught us more about politics than Jon Stewart and Trevor Noah? They're all simply just comedians. Bill Maher is just a comedian. And even President Zelensky of Ukraine is simply just a comedian. It's the idea of, it's to me the best way to reach people. Good comedy makes you laugh, but great comedy makes you think. And hopefully my comedy makes people think.
Dude, wow. So you went to law school
I did. I did.
and and then when did you decide, you know what, I'm gonna jump, I'm gonna come to LA and I'm gonna start doing this?
Basically at the worst time, basically when I owed all the money, basically around that time.
So you decided to come out. And when you came out, you came straight to Los Angeles?
Exactly. I the only two places I've ever lived in my life were the DC metropolitan area and the Los Angeles metropolitan area, which is right now I'm currently based right in the true heart of Los Angeles, which is West Hollywood, where all the
That's awesome.
comedy clubs are. I'm within less than a mile of the Comedy Store, Laugh Factory, which is my home, and the Improv, three of the top five comedy clubs in the world. These are the Lakers and the Celtics of the NBA of comedy. So they're the best clubs, the best places to perform. The best comedians come out of here. That's what it is. The Cellar in New York is another excellent one. The Stand has come up and all those other places. But right now, I'm in the middle of all three, the heart and spirit of comedy.
When you came to Los Angeles, did you have this expansive experience with the Persian community prior to that, or was this like a new thing for you?
Well, it's so interesting. I didn't immerse myself in the Persian community in Los Angeles. I think people don't realize that DC, the DMV, has the second largest Persian diaspora in America, more so than New York or any of the other places. So while Los Angeles is number one, DC is number two. And the types of Persians that go and the types of Iranians, I should say, that are in both places, because not all Persians are Iranian, but not all Iranians are Persian. So when you look at it, the background of having so many Kurdish or Baluchi or Lor or Armenian, Ashuri, Assyrian, Persian Assyrians, Persian Armenians, all these different types of people. We have a big community of each in Los Angeles and a big community of each in Washington D.C. So it was just taking where I have always already been and just making it larger.
So it wasn't like Oh, you never dealt with it. You already dealt with it. You already knew the communities.
Exactly. It's not like some people who come from cities like Kansas City, where there's actually a group of Iranians, or even
Interesting.
Atlanta, where there's a bigger group, but they're clearly overpopulated by everyone else. In the Washington, D.C. area, there is a prevalent Iranian diaspora representation and community that is there. And it's so beautiful. It's flourishing. It's very Persian proud. A lot of the kids there, unlike a lot of other places, are Farsi speakers. The first generation, second generationers, Farsi speakers, Farsi writers. I read and write Farsi myself.
Oh,
It's
good for
something
you.
that, yeah, it's something that became ingrained, and it was Persian proud. And when I say that, it's not Persian proud like let's talk bad about other cultures and only talk good about ourselves. It's as we have a place here too. So if you were at a party at a nightclub in DC, you'd maybe the non-Persian DJ would drop a Bandari song in the middle of a set, the same way he would drop a reggaeton song or a Bad Bunny. He'd drop something by Sandy. That's the kind of vibe that we have. DC is very multicultural and people are very mixed, unlike, unfortunately, LA, which is very, very divided and segregated by race. In LA, when I say Beverly Hills, you know I'm talking about Persians or specifically Persian Jews. When I say Encino, you know that I'm talking about Persians, but specifically Persian Muslims. When I say Westwood, I'm talking about Persian people. When I say Glendale, I'm talking about Armenians. If I say Compton, I mean Black people. East LA, I mean Latinos. Everything is so segregated here, unfortunately. And sometimes we don't all come together, which I wish would happen more in the world.
Well, that's your comedy, though. I mean, you are inspired to bring everyone together. It seems like educate me. Like I've never seen it before. I've seen some of your stuff, but please educate me, like your perspective on how you create your comedy, how you resonate with people.
So my show, I have a show at the Laugh Factory, which is the world famous Laugh Factory. It's the platform and stage that created so many comedians like Richard Pryor, Dave Chappelle when he was in LA, Tiffany Haddish. They all came from this stage, which has always been a very inclusive, racially diverse stage, as opposed to other clubs which may not have been so and had a hard time doing as such. The Laugh Factory has allowed me to practice my craft and hone it. And the thing about comedy is it's inclusive. If a tragedy happens and you're in a room full of people crying, even in a room full of people, you're still crying alone. But when comedy happens and you're in a room full of people laughing, you're still laughing together. That's the beauty of comedy. And I get to talk about a variety of topics. And because of my background, I get to go places that a lot of people who are not racially diverse, ethnically diverse, culturally diverse, or religiously diverse can go. I can bring different groups of people all in the same place. And that's the beauty of my type of comedy. And I hope that people realize you're not just relating to me, you're relating through me. Each of us have something that's in one another. And if we can just tap into that, we as a humanity will realize we're much more alike than we are different.
That's amazing. Now, you've been doing comedy since what year?
I've been doing comedy. It's about 10 years now. To be real, because of COVID, it's more like 12 years, but we try to keep those 2 years under wraps.
And when you do comedy, um, the Persian community, how do you see them? I know you're obviously Persian, and how do they see you? And how did it start up when you started doing your comedy? Was there an awkwardness in place? Was there some, what was it? You know what I mean?
Oh, comedy always starts off awkward because the biggest fear of most people is public speaking. And comedy is a form of public speaking. That's the entire art. You don't have a soundtrack or a beat of a drum or anything else to drown out your mistakes. It's you and the audience. So when a musician goes on stage, as my brother Dave Chappelle says, if a musician goes on stage, they have an instrument and the sound they make is music. A comedian goes on stage, our instrument is the audience, and the sound that we make, our music is laughter. And that's the thing. So it's always going to be, there's going to be a lot of growth. No one goes on stage and is just automatically at the top of their game. Practice makes perfect. Thankfully, I had some experience from hosting things. Also, I had a lot of great mentors. Maz Jobrani, Mahsa Amini, they're some of the biggest Persian comedians in the game, alongside Omi Jalili. They aren't just some of the biggest Persian comedians in the game. They're some of the biggest comedians in the game. At this point, their platform is international and worldwide. And Max Amini was the first person to put me on stage. He was doing a show. He's also from the D.C. Metropolitan Area, and he was coming home after being in California for almost a decade, just becoming a big name. And he was doing his first big show. And he tapped me to host and gave me that space and gave me the encouragement to do so. Afterwards, Maz Jobrani was coming into town, and Maz told me to go on stage and allowed me some time on his show, which was also a very big show. And he told me and gave me the best advice, which is, Tehran, you have what it takes, but now you have to take what it has. And by doing so, that means you have to take this seriously. You have to go to a place like New York or LA and practice and get on stage and do this if you want to take it seriously. And I was fortunate enough to have a base in LA with friends and family that lived here or were coming here, and we moved here together and able to grow right here in Los Angeles.
That is amazing. So right now, you are doing, I know you were in different countries even. You went to do a couple of different tours. Like, what did you do? What did you work on? Tell us
I was all over. Well, I've had several tours. I travel internationally every year. The Middle East, I was recently in Oman, Qatar, Qatar. I was in Oman, Qatar, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, which is the UAE region, Jordan, Amman. I was in Lebanon, Beirut before the accident, and fortunate enough to go back after and saw the devastation it's caused. I've been to Israel. I've been to Palestine. I've been all over the world. Recently just did Europe, did 18 cities in 20 days with Maz Jobrani, Eindhoven to Berlin, Milan, Italy, which Maz did a 20-minute set in Italian because he speaks Italian. I mean, I've been able to travel the world because of comedy, and it's been such a beautiful blessing getting to know people from all around the world and seeing firsthand that people are much more alike than they are different. And for some reason, whether you go to Alabama or Saudi Arabia, people are so much similar. Every husband hates their wife. Like, I don't understand it, but you could be in Alabama. It's like, ding dong, goddamn, I hate you, bitch. And then you go to Saudi Arabia, it's like, Allah, bitch. And you're like, why? Why is this happening? Why is Billy Bob and Billy Abdul the same? Why are they the same person?
That's hilarious. How did your performances in these Middle Eastern countries, this is quite interesting to me. How did they see you as an American, a mixed racial American, coming into their country? What was their perspective? What did you pick up on when you're doing your show, and then after, obviously, when you were talking to people? How did you come across? How was that chemistry? I'm really curious about that.
It really comes down to transcending. Chemistry transcends language barriers. Chemistry transcends cultural barriers. Just good energy, good vibes, good fun. I found some of the best people in some of the most war-torn places. I have found amazing human beings in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, who love to laugh just as much as someone in Chicago, Illinois. So it's all about just having good energy that people can relate to. They understand, they speak their truths with you. Laughing is always contagious. It's more contagious than COVID. The world was infected and the pandemic happened because of COVID. I wish we had one where it was smile, laughter, good energy, and positivity instead.
Now you're demonstrating the poetry of what you got going on. That was poetry right there, what you just said. Does your comedy shift from country or region? Do you adjust your take on things, or is it all the same?
So it's this. I'm a comedian. I'm not a caterer. I don't cater for the crowd. I comedian for the crowd. So my comedy is always an authentic, organic representation of who I am as a person and my life experiences and my thoughts and my feelings and my sense of humor, no matter where I go in the world. And hopefully most people can resonate and associate and see and be and feel themselves through it. It doesn't, just like even your favorite food, one person might love pizza and someone else hates it. It doesn't mean pizza's a bad food. It just means that this person doesn't like pizza. Thankfully, my comedy seems to resonate with lots of different types of people, but I won't change my comedy the same way that I won't change who I am. I'm willing to grow my comedy the same way I'm willing to grow who I am as a person, but I won't change it, not the core, not the spirit, because then it wouldn't be me and it wouldn't authentically be real.
Who is your idol or your someone you looked up to when you were a kid, as far as actors or comedians or anyone is concerned?
The biggest, I've always loved Dave Chappelle. He still is my favorite comedian. He's so brilliant. I love Maz Jobrani and Max Amini, Amir K, very funny. Omi Jalili, brilliant. These people are brilliant. But my favorite comedians in my life growing up were my mom and dad. They are the funniest people on the planet, even when they don't realize it. They have no idea, but they are just so funny that they are actually the biggest influence that I have on my comedy and my take on the world.
That's amazing. How did your mom and dad meet?
Well, a lot of people love to, my father's Iranian and my mother is black, and they love to discuss and feel like my father is Martin Luther King, or that they met at some humanitarian effort, or maybe they met at a protest, or just they love making these ideas out. They met in college, and it really came down to my father is not Martin Luther King. He just likes black girls with ass. And he just saw a girl that he found attractive, and they met and they got together and they got married and they knocked the boots and they had me and my siblings, and that is about it. There is no mythological, amazing tale, civil rights story that comes along with my upbringing or my life. People love to think my father is this amazing liberal, just progressively minded thinking person. It's like, that is not my father. That is not him. My Bubba is just a typical Bubba. He's got the bald head pattern and the just like all the Bubbas. He is a Bubba.
Listen, did your parents ever go to Iran when you were a kid with you?
When I was a kid, I've been to Iran twice. I was unfortunately very young and don't remember it that well. I have a lot of random thoughts and memories of Jud de Charlus, which is the famous road that takes you to Shamal. I have these ideas, but I just don't remember that well. I was under the age of 8 or 6 at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
So
yeah.
but when I was a child, but my family does frequent Iran. My father, obviously, a person who's willing to name his son Tehran, is a person who
That's
loves
awesome.
Iran. And so
Yeah,
my family does visit. Of course, because of my activities and my career, I don't visit. I don't go to Iran, and I
right.
haven't as an adult. And before that, I had basketball and things. And because of that, I've been very open against the Islamic Republic regime simply because I do not and will not tolerate oppression from anyone. I would critique anyone, but especially something that's close to my heart when it comes to this. It's not about the politics, it's about the principles.
Interesting. Do you have fans from Iran that reach out to you from on social media, or tell me about that? How's that work for you?
I do. It's very sweet. They'll leave voice notes. Most importantly, it's the only real reason I need to learn. I'm glad that I learned to speak, read, and write Farsi, because they will write me long paragraphs in Farsi and I will read them. Unfortunately, like it's not even because my Farsi is not good. It's just because I'm a guy. I respond with short text like merci. Like I'm like because it's just I'm a guy. I'm a guy at the end of the day. I'm just some guy. I'm not writing back long text is just not going to be my area of expertise. But I appreciate each and every fan that I have from Iran. I love when they reach out. I love when the comedians reach out. They are so creative. The Iranian talent, the artists in Iran are some of the most creative, talented people in the world. They are creating art in a place where it's suppressed. They are creating art that's brilliant. They're funny. They say funny things. Lastik, pelastik. They're just so creative. They're just so fast. They're so witty. And it's a beautiful thing to see. So thank you to all the fans, and thank you to every artist who's doing it in Iran. They're making an impact. Shout out to Tumaj, who finally freed but isn't still. Shout out to all those people making a difference. Thank you.
You know, man, it's interesting this is not a political show, but it's a humanitarian show. We definitely touch on that aspect of it. You said something about how the artists in Iran, the actors or the comedians are very creative. What exactly do you mean by that?
I mean that they are some of the most creative people, people who have to go above and beyond. They have to perform their art in underground parties and homes and behind closed doors. They have to make it manageable so that they don't get arrested, but say poignant and brilliant things. There's a artist in Iran who's a writer, director, producer, talent named Mehran Modiri. This guy is brilliant. He creates things that are Chappelle Show-esque, but for public consumption in Iran. There are singers there are people like even some of the transplants to LA, like Sasiman Khan and people like that from Iran. They were doing this in Iran before. The rappers in Iran are taking to the streets. They are the voice of the people. So it's just amazing.
I had Nicole Ansari Cox on the show. She's half
Wow.
Persian. She's half Persian. She's married to Brian Cox, and we had a really good conversation. And her father is Iranian, was Iranian.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing her at Anderson Cooper's New Year's Eve thing on TV about 3, 4 years ago, and I realized, and she had reached out to me actually on social media right after I did Bus 657, and I didn't look at it. Sometimes some of this stuff goes into the spam folder, but she was amazing, and she was on the show, and she was talking about how she was motivated to join the Iranian community in New York when Mahsa Amini happened. What
Yeah.
kind of reaction did you have yourself to that when that happened, and how did you address your comedy?
Massa Gina Amini was a catalyst, a spark for an uprising movement that unfortunately lasted too short. It was people coming together and uniting, and unfortunately fell to division. But in those moments, in that beginning, just people speaking up for people. It's more than just hijab or covering your hair. It's about the future. It's about the youth. It's about the next generation and the next generation. And even though it feels like the masses aren't in it, I was one of the people who spoke up and spoke out. I was a person who went to and helped organize. I tried to be as much a force, not for myself, but to amplify the voices of the people in Iran. I have the luxury of living in the United States. And to be honest, I think people over exaggerate or overestimate the amount of Persian that I am, meaning that Persian issues mean a lot to me as a humanitarian, but I'm born and raised in America. Persian issues are still adjacent to my own here in this country. The reason I feel connected to it is not just because it's my father's homeland, but because Iran women's issues, Iran youth issues are world human issues. They are things that we should be talking about and do not get the spotlight or shine that they deserve. My thing is 90% of the time, I'm just an American guy who walks around, has American friends, does American things, or whatever it is. But there's a part of me that will always be connected to my homeland, my father's homeland, blood that runs through my veins. I saw people coming together and feeling that unity. The fact that Nicole is a perfect example, someone who's also half Iranian, who felt that vibe. I don't even think Nicole speaks Farsi, if I remember correctly, but she understood it. Once again, it's something that humanity, just like comedy, also transcends language barriers and cultural barriers and religious divides. And you feel swept up in it. And unfortunately, it failed so soon because of petty bickering and lack of unity and division and finger pointing and accusations and political conspiracies and grandstanding and too many chefs in the kitchen. All those things, too many generals on the battlefield, and it fell too quickly. But the change is still there. And the change, in my opinion, must come from within Iran itself. And it has. There are people who are now growing up who will never forget the events of that day, will never forget the events of that year, will never forget the amount of people that were imprisoned simply for having an opinion. and speaking up and speaking out. And so I believe that the change has occurred. It just isn't happening as fast as everyone would like.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, politics it doesn't have a mother or father. So, what is on your agenda coming up?
You want to know where people can find me? Is that where you want everyone to find me?
Well, I definitely want to get where people want to find you, but I also want to know that where you're going to be performing as well.
Sure.
Yes.
You want to know where I'm going to be next? You want to know what are you the Islamic Republic government? Are you coming for me? Are you going to find me? You are you the CIA right now? Who are you, right? Who do you represent? Who are you working for? Who are you working for? I know what you're doing. The whole point of this show, Stephen, Cyrus, Saperi, I know what they're really doing. I know what this is really about. Okay, I need to get off this show. Find me performing. I have a big show at the Laugh Factory Thursday, February 6th at the Laugh Factory. It is going to be my birthday show. It's a huge show every single year. I have amazing lineups and amazing special guests, and of course, you get to see a lot of me. I also will be having a show in San Diego, which my heart goes out to the people who are affected by the fires down there right now in San Diego on March 2nd, Sunday, March 2nd at the Laugh Factory in San Diego. We will need comedy more than ever, so please check that out. I also will be performing in Irvine Improv on April 30th, my own headline show. I'll be touring with Maz Jobrani. Feel free to go check us out on mazjobrani.com. See all those dates. Miami this week, Canada next week, Glendale on February 14th. There's a lot of shows. And of course, you can come see me at the Laugh Factory every single Thursday, 10 p.m. in West Hollywood. I will be there.
I love it. Is there anything I didn't ask that you want to lay out there for us?
So my favorite color is black. I love to walk on the beach. I love candlelit dinners for two, thunderstorms, Netflix and chilling, especially without the Netflix. And no, I appreciate you for having the show. Thank you so much. And of course, everybody, feel free to find me on social media all across the board at I am Tehran. My name is Tehran, like the capital of Iran. It is my real name. And if you don't know how to spell Tehran, please just watch Fox News. Literally, we'll talk about me every single day. And we're probably going to be bombing me sometime in the near future.
Love you, brother. Thank you, man. Good to see you.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Cyrus.
Take care, man. Bye.